Today, I'm going to share a very interesting concept. I call it the NS mindset. I've lived a very interesting life, going from the average Nigerian who was trying to budget his way through three square meals to someone who makes millions of dollars online. So I've seen it all, going from the lowest stratum of society to its absolute pinnacle, sharing my wisdom and every single thing I've accumulated on this journey, this arduous path to success, is my way of giving back to community. Now we've established that point. The first mindset to becoming an earnest is you must be willing to upset people. In this day and age where confidence is scoffed at, if you display even a minuscule level, a tiny bit of confidence, instantly you're demonized, you're vilified. Any belief associated with confidence is Trojan horsed. And this is what the mainstream media do. They take a very heinous concept, wrap it in a nice Trojan horse, and it becomes very difficult to argue against that position. For instance, are you homophobic? No, I'm not. I believe every single person should have rights. Okay, so why don't you want drag queen in school? No, I do not want my children. I hate the idea that my nephew would be taught that he was born in the wrong body or some purporting some kind of garbage on my kids. Then you're homophobic. It becomes very difficult to argue against things like that. So any display of confidence or any display of faith, either in your goals, either in society, either in humanity, either in yourself or what it is you set out to accomplish, is instantly demonized. You, the average individual, and I checked my YouTube analytics, is individuals within the range of 18 to 24 that are my constant viewers. So it's most likely you're within the age range of college. Walk to your mom, walk to your parents, walk to your guardian, walk to any person, walk up to any person you believe in. Say, I'm going to make $1 million, or pronounce your goals, pronounce your achievements. Walk up to your mom, I'm going to retire you next year. And you can see the look of pain and naivety, that stare that says your achievement is impossible, especially within that time frame. Now, your guardian, your parents, whatever, might not verbalize their disbelief in order not to hurt you. Again, most people, it ties back to that concept where individuals are not willing to upset people. Whether in this case is bad or good is debatable, but there are some who would verbalize their disbelief and go, nah, it's impossible. You can't achieve this feat, especially within that time frame. Give it up. Just go to school. Put your head down. Go to college. Then when you get a job and you're 65, the feat becomes achievable. I recall one time, I walked up to this man who I believed in. And I say believe, not because I have lost faith. I believe every single one of us acts based on the level of our transformation. You don't give what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have. So the only reason he reacted that way is because of the level of his transformation. So I walked up to this man and I said, one day I'm going to build a house. And you could see the level of attentiveness. He paid attention. And finally, we got to the end. He seemed very agreeable. Ask me a very interesting question. Where would you get the money from? I vividly recall saying, I have no money. The next time I came to him about some audacious goal or some project I'm excited about, still in the planning phase, he laughed it off. And anytime I would seek his expertise on something I aspire to do in the future, I would introduce that subject with a laugh. So he has so ingrained in my subconscious that I I did not believe in what I wanted to achieve. I did not or I disbelieved in defeat. I had no faith in myself. It's the same thing with you. People have so laughed at your dreams. People have so disbelieved you. You've been so ridiculed. You've become the object of comedy, such that personifying that ridicule is now your reality. I snapped, and you, like me, my friend, has to snap. Do not let anyone tell you, ah, wait, or do not let anyone encourage you to delay responsibility until a certain age, until something external happens, until you get a job, until that contract comes. Winners do not wait for things to happen. Winners make things happen. That's how it works. But in this day and age, individuals are not willing to upset. Most of the time, you're in the couch or you're in the living room and your girl is talking shit. Instead of you to tell her, shut up, dumb bitch. I know more about you. I understand the brutality of life. I understand the concept of consequences and how it correlates towards action. No, but a small woman can beat up five big dudes. I saw it on Netflix. So instead of you to shut her up, you agree, you conform. And it's very interesting where society is headed in these modern times. They are teaching you to ignore reality. They are teaching you that at the premiere or the red carpet of this movie, where that tiny Asian chick dresses up like a beauty queen with some flowing gown and she's taking poses, that lady can beat up five dudes and you should fucking believe it. Else, you're misogynist. Else, you're misogynist. You hate women. No, I don't hate women. I only disbelieve that a tiny woman can beat up five dudes. No, you're a misogynist. Ties back to our point of Trojan horsing concepts. So that's how it goes. They're trying to educate us, they're trying to indoctrinate us with this idea to ignore our own eyes, to ignore objective reality. In fact, it is cheaper and easier to convince people to disbelieve their own eyes than trying to make that reality conform to sight. Think of how difficult it would be to make the sky green as opposed to convincing people that the sky is green. You are so deluded that they've taught you as a lady. Once you go up into the locker room and you see a full grown man, you should ignore your eyes and call it a woman. Now, this has nothing to do with misogyny or gay or transphobic. This is a concept, something I'm awakening you to, something I truly want every single one of you to consider. So that's the first one, to the NS mindset. You must be willing to upset people. I remember the inception of my first business. I don't want to go into much about it because it's still confidential. We are still in the talking phase, still doing deals. So anything I say would be an interruption or a breach of agreement. I recall talking to the developers on a Zoom call. I'm going to take this company or I'm going to build this company into a $1 trillion conglomerate. And you could see the scoffs and the repulsiveness to that concept. You could hear them giggle. And after I left the Zoom call, they started making fun of how deluded I was. But I didn't give a shit. Majority of you are so terrified to pronounce your belief. Majority of you seek approval. Majority of you detest the idea that someone would be offended by something you said or did because you are not prepared to defend your ideology. You are not prepared to stand firm in whatever it is you believe. Is asinine. There's this test subject where they got a group of 10 individuals, and while they were in the waiting room waiting for the experiment without the knowledge that the waiting room was the experiment, so 9 actresses and one subject, a big black man pulls a card. What color is this card? The first one goes green, the second green, and in that manner. When he got to the last subject, he says green. So he ignores his eyes, he ignored the reality, he ignored the objective reality of that paper card, which was blue, because he wasn't willing to upset people. So that's the first one. You must be willing to upset people. The second is you must be willing to be alone. This is a very interesting point because from an evolutionary standpoint, we as humans seek companionship. That's how we've been as a tribe, as a community, and society. So the progressive evolution of humanity has always been a group of people in a tribe or in a society, a community. Yes, in modern times, as the world evolves, that tribalism or that tribe expands relatively. But this idea of isolation is frowned upon from an evolutionary standpoint. So even if you force yourself deliberately to be isolated on a long enough time frame, you would seek out companions. So when you try to impose a task or impose a goal that requires isolation, you feel the urge for companionship. It is perfectly normal. It isn't as a result of lack of discipline or lack of stoicism or lack of motivation. It's a natural temperament. However, in this day and age of insanity, it becomes very difficult to associate with humans because 90% of everybody you interact with are average. And in order to be friends with people, you must have to share beliefs and principles. In other words, as an intelligent individual, you truly understand for you to have a friend, you should be congenial. That friendship is founded upon habits, beliefs, values. Can two work together except they be agreed? Of course not, says the Bible. So in order for two to work together, they must be agreed. In order for you to be friends, your beliefs must be incongruent, must be harmonious. Trust in a situation where you want to achieve this goal. Trust in a situation on your arduous path to success. It becomes very difficult to find similar people on that path. Therefore, it leads to isolation. It doesn't lead to isolation because success is a lonely path, because I guarantee you it is. It leads to isolation because there are very few people who are willing to upset other individuals in the process. in exchange for success, which is the first point. You can see how these mindsets connect to each other. You must be willing to upset people before you're willing to be alone. The idea of existing as you grow, you create enemies by default. If you're a businessman, you're most likely going to have to deal with envy, employee politics, competitors. So this is not as a result because you're a terrible individual. It has something to do with your personality. So growth is a byproduct, or enemies is a byproduct of growth. If you don't have enemies, it means you're doing something wrong. You must be willing to be alone. You must be comfortable in your own skin. I recall one time at the infancy of my career, I would decline birthday parties, decline events in exchange for success, in exchange for the pursuits of my most coveted goals. Something very interesting happened. I noticed the degree of antagonism that came as a byproduct of that choice. It got to a point where you would walk into class and nobody would acknowledge your presence. No one would come say hello. And as stoic and as disciplined as you can be, when nobody recognizes you as a human, when you become invincible, it does something to you psychologically. Regardless of where you are at the economic ladder or motivation, discipline, when you become invincible, it does something to you such that you take back your own words, you take back your sacrifice, you relinquish the success in exchange for a bit of companionship. And in order to be accepted as a companion, you have to conform. And you know what principle you're conforming towards? Exactly. The kind that deters you from your goal. A notable advice to every single person in this scenario: you should make your companions online friends. By online friends, I mean influencers, people that inspire you. You should spend time with their materials, their podcast, every single thing you can of them 247. Replace the physical need for individuals with that online community. Which is what I find very funny when you see young entrepreneurs give excuses like, I'm in search for a mentor. First things first, it's abysmal because any single question you have is most likely that that mentor has responded to such in a podcast or a book or some material, because there's nothing new under the sun. Every single idea or problem is not unique to your business. There must be something similar, something you build upon in that wise. So you don't necessarily need a one-on-one mentor to guarantee your success. Would that be helpful? Yes. Is it necessary? Nope. You can achieve success in spite of a mentor. Mentors are like leverages. Mentors are like a ladder towards success. They are an advantage, not a prerequisite, not a necessity as touching success. I guarantee you, if you go through a long list of mentors, somewhere along the line, one entrepreneur never had a mentor. Somewhere along the line, one person had to break the cycle of poverty, engendering mentorship programs. So that person and or adopts his outlaw mentality as touching success. Very unfortunately, but Gentiles come to your light as you begin to traverse the board of success. You notice certain kind of individuals gravitate towards you. The kind of man who I was 3 to 4 years ago isn't the kind of person smart, intelligent, confident, been through enough shit that is able to derive principles and philosophies from that experience. Is the kind of man you won't gravitate towards. So as you begin your path of success, just start. Don't wait for every single thing to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. Perfection is highly desirable, but nothing man-made is or can be perfect. To wait for the perfect time is to wait forever. Is as similar as waiting for all the lights to turn green before you make your trip. Now, give me an exact statistical figure of the chances of you arriving. Single digits, decimals if you like. So, friends, be willing to be alone. There's no such thing as a perfect time to start. At the infancy of my career, the community I lived for about a year or so, there was no electricity. I'm sure majority of you have heard the story. So I have to walk miles in order to get my device charged and get access to materials that talks about the economy. Look at videos that talks about a higher level of mindset. Look at videos that analyzes the economy. Look at anything I can get my hands on that would make me rich. I recall one time when I got home after charging my device, sitting on the floor because I fucking couldn't afford a chair. The hard cold tiles. Now, most of you would bemoan your situation. Most of you would cry or say, why me? Instead, I looked to my left. There was a big fat book. And I said, although I've read this book 100 times, I'll read it 20 more times because that is the best move to make. You sitting at home, answer this question. What is the best move to make? Pause this video, write it down. What is the best move to make in this situation? And this is one of the dangers of manifestation because you get caught up in waiting for some events before you feel a certain way, before you give yourself permission to feel confident, to act in a certain way, believe yourself enough to achieve a certain kind of result. Or I want to be taller, or when I'm muscular, I'll have the confidence to walk up to a girl. My friend, failure is an inevitable feat in life. As you'll be learning, I'll be giving you my failures. Let me not go ahead of myself as touching women. If I walk up to a lady and I said, hello, my friend, how are you today? Fine. What's your name? I don't know. It's fine. I came here to tell you, you look stunning tonight. That's all. Walk away. Be polite about it. Know when to take your loss. In fact, there are two ways to lose the battle of women. You can either go down with honor and say, fuck this bitch, I'll improve myself, make a little bit of money, do some push-ups, and I'll try in the next 6 months. Or you go down begging, or you go down with the Machiavellian style. Oh, let me just be your friend. Please give me your number. Please give me your number. Please give me your number. What? And you and I both know the most optimal choice to make. So you must be willing to be alone. First one is you must be willing to upset people. The second, you must be willing to be alone. The third, which I have a very interesting story backing that up, is be willing to fail in public. Now, this philosophy alone erodes 70% of your problem. If there's nothing you understood by what I have just said, understand this last philosophy completely. Willing to fail in public. In fact, your fear of failure, especially in public, is what has led to your avoidance of talking with women, your avoidance of answering questions in a class, your avoidance of asking a very important question in a business meeting that would have earned you the title of smart, by extension, the CEOs and every single leader in that conglomerate wants to associate with you because of your level and depth in insight. Fear of public failure. I recall one time, and I'm always recalling. In fact, I'm sure I'm going to see this in this comment section. Every single one of you. I recall one time, and it will be a thing of ridicule. But it's fine. I'm not knocking on it. I recount when I was invited for some birthday party. Usually I don't go, but this time I decided to. Arrive at the birthday party, it turned into a house party because we were a bunch of ladies relative to guys. It so turned out they engaged in the game of truth or dare. The call passed round and they were involved in certain activities that I believe incongruent with my values and I deem extremely childish, especially for individuals at that age level. Everyone listen up. Stop what you are doing. We can all agree that we are adults and every single one of us knows what we want. So let's stop the charade. Let's stop this stupid activity. And every man walk up to the girl you like and say hello. If she's willing to go home with you, if she's willing to go to the room by the corner, then fine. But let's just stop this rubbish. And instantly, everywhere went quiet because they were thinking the exact same thing as I. I walked up to the first lady and I said, hello, my friend, how are you today? Hi, in disgust. What's your name? Vanessa? I'm fine. Would you like to go to the room with me? I know I was very direct. Nobody in our right senses should say yes. But she said no. Nah, I'll pass. Instantly, everybody go kind of giggling. Calm down. I'm a businessman and I can handle rejection. I walk up to the next lady. Next lady, hello. How are you today? I'm be fine. Introduce myself and I say, I'm not coming to you second because you're less desirable. Only because there are a lot of pretty ladies and various things becomes the disqualifying factor. For instance, character. I walked up to you, you were nice, sweet voice, excited to see you. Why don't we go to that room at the right and I get to know you better? I'm trying my best to put this in a very polite way that makes you look good, that makes you look cool. And she goes, alright. And that was how I walked to the room with a lady I've never met. And while we are done with the whole process, she looks up to me and says, do you know why I went with you? I don't know why. Because of your confidence. Not just the ability to instigate the idea, but the ability to fail publicly and not take it personally. Most guys, first of all, they're very nervous to talk to women. The second is if they fail publicly or if they get rejected, especially in a group as large as that, they take a hit. Their voice tightens, their lips get dry, they begin fidgeting. But he didn't do none of that. And I found that confidence very attractive. The fact that I'm willing to risk my public image for a sniff of success is evident in this YouTube channel. Posting 400 plus videos, every single person aware of the channel, and yet still not giving up, still being consistent, irregardless of what they say, irregardless of what they do, irregardless of how they put it. I recall one time at the infancy of my career, and I just said it again. I recall one time 400 plus videos, no engagement, only 2 views. My brother and the other brother. And when the view count would drop to 1, he's returned back to boarding house. It was so bad that the other one stopped tuning in as a result of work and other extracurricular activities. So it was terrible. Instead, I still persisted day after day. And my friend, I did not just post in a sporadical manner anytime I consume a 5 minute motivational video from Goggins, then I'm pumped up to post. No, day after day, not missing a single day. There are times where it would get so late, I would post by 8:30 p.m. that regardless of the venture, I must post a video. And I'm not posting a video to rid myself of guilt. I'm posting a video that I put in a significant amount of effort into inspiring and challenging my audience. And it paid off fucking well. And when you look at me today in heights of success, balling, he's lucky. We live in a world that likes to downplay people's efforts, that likes to discredit success. We live in a world that finds comfort in attributing luck to the equation of success. It suits their monumental failure. It comforts them. It's their shield from appearing like a failure. That's how it is. So the 3 mindsets I want every single NS fan to adopt. The first one is be willing to upset people. The second, be willing to be alone. The third, do not fear public failure. Imagine Elon after motivating his team. We are going to Mars, we are going to do XYZ, we are going to be the first individual to fly to Mars and come back. We are going to be you are going to be regarded as an entity. You all are part of something bigger, and the vision blows up in his face, literally blows up. He takes the field the second time, barely scraping enough parts, convince the investors to put more money, talking to the staffs, you're going to be best, and gives them the same pitch. In fact, with more vigor. Guess what happens? Exactly. Tries again the third time before it finally works. So why the fuck would you give up? In a recent interview, he said, for every rocket that blew up, $50 million, $100 million, including marginal expenses. So an individual was willing to lose hundreds of millions in a feat he believed possible. So my friends, I believe you've gained. Am I losing my wordings? Very unusual. But I believed you've gained a lot of wisdom from this video. I have no idea how many minutes it is, but it's been an awesome time with you guys. And as always, my friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. See you when?